Welcome back, dear students, to part 2 of lesson number 5, the necklace. In part 1, we have seen how the main character, Methilde, was unhappy with her life, but how happy she was when she went for a party with a beautiful dress and a borrowed necklace from her friend. But how things change when she notices how she loses the diamond necklace. Now, let's see what happens further with our main character. I hope, children, all of you all have your textbooks open. All right, page number 22. Let's begin with part 2. They looked in the folds of her dress, in the folds of her cloak, in her pockets, everywhere, but they could not find it. Are you sure you still had it on when you left the hall? He asked. Yes, I touched it in the hall at the ministry. But if you had lost it in the street, we would have heard it fall. It must be in the cab. Yes, that's probably it. Did you take his number? No. They stared at each other stunned. At last, Loisel put his clothes on again. I'm going back, he said, over the whole route we walked and see if I can find it. So here we see how they were so devastated by the fact that they had lost the diamond necklace, and now they were trying to search and recover and see if it was possible for them to find the necklace. They searched everywhere on her, thinking where it would be caught, maybe in her pockets or in the cloaks or in the folds of her dress. But unfortunately for them, they could not find it anywhere. In the end, they decided maybe it was in the cab that they took to come home. And Loisel, the husband, decided that he would go back and walk the entire way and see if they could find it there. He left. She remained in her ball dress all night, her mind blank. Her husband returned at about 7 o'clock. He had found nothing. He went to the police, to the newspapers to offer a reward, to the cab companies. Everywhere the tiniest glimmer of hope led him. She waited all day in despair at this frightful disaster. Loisel returned in the evening, a hollow, pale figure. He had found nothing. You must write to your friend, he said. Tell her you have broken the clasp of her necklace and that you are having it mended. It will give us some time more. She wrote as he dictated. So now that when he came back, he found that the necklace was nowhere to be found, and he went everywhere in search of this necklace. He thought maybe the police could help him, or maybe give it out in the newspapers where someone who would find it would give it back so that they could reward that person. Went to the cab company to find out if it was left in the cab. Any and everywhere that he could, maybe have the slightest chance of getting back the necklace. Unfortunately for them, the entire day went with this. They had this feeling within them that now that the necklace is lost, all hope is lost. In the evening, when he returned a hollow, pale figure, hollow, almost empty. All right, and he had absolutely no color in his face because he was so tired as well as exhausted and frightened because a diamond necklace was lost. So, in the end, he decided that he needed more time to search for this necklace, and he asked his wife to lie to her friend, saying that the the hook at the back for the necklace is broken, and that they have given it to be mended to be repaired. All right, and she had to write a letter, but she was in such a lost state of mind that she could not even bring herself to write that letter. So as the husband dictated, she was writing. At the end of 1 week they had lost all hope, and Loisel, who suddenly looked aged, declared we must consider how to replace the jewel. And so they went from jeweler to jeweler, looking for a necklace like the other one, consulting their memories, both sick with grief and anguish. In a shop at the Palais Royal, they found a string of diamonds which seemed to be exactly what they were looking for. It was worth 40,000 francs. They could have it for 36,000. So when they went, at the end of the week, maybe they thought after giving it out in the newspapers, someone would come forward and give back the necklace. However, after a week, they had lost all hope and they decided that now it was time to buy a new one so that they could return it back to her friend. And so they went from one place to another, asking and consulting all jewelers and also thinking about the pattern of the necklace. Okay, so that they could replicate it, they could make a duplicate of that necklace so that it would look like the original one. When they did find a particular diamond necklace that looked exactly like the one that she had lost, they realized that it was very expensive, 40,000 francs. And after maybe, discussing with the jeweler, he lessened the amount to 36,000. So they begged the jeweler not to sell it for 3 days, and they made an arrangement that he would take it back for 34,000 francs if the other necklace was found before the end of February. Loisel had 18,000 francs, which his father had left him. He would borrow the rest. And he did borrow. He gave notes, made ruinous agreements, dealt with every type of money lender. Then he went to get the new necklace and laid down on the jeweller's counter 36,000 francs. So they made a deal with the jeweler and said that please do not sell the necklace for 3 days. Give us some time to collect all this money. And the jeweler agreed, and also they might have told them the whole story of how the necklace was lost. So if the original necklace was found, the jeweler would take back the piece that he is selling them, all right, but at a loss of 2000 francs. All right, why? Because it was being bought at 36, but when he takes it back he will ask them to pay 34. Loisel had 18,000 francs. Now, when his father died, Loisel, Loisel's father had given him or left him back so much of money. So he was ready to forfeit all that money in order to pay for the necklace, as well as he had to borrow from others. Okay, so he started making ruinous deals and agreements, something that would ruin him, to destroy him completely. And he went to all the money lenders so that he could arrange the money that was required to buy the necklace. When Madame Loisel took the necklace back, Madame Forester said coldly, "You should have returned it sooner. I might have needed it." From then on, Madame Loisel knew the horrible life of the very poor, but she played her part heroically. The dreadful debt must be paid. She would pay it. They dismissed their maid. They changed their lodgings. They rented a garret under the roof. She came to know the drudgery of housework, the odious labors of the kitchen. She washed the dishes, the dirty linen, and carried the garbage down to the street every morning, and carried up the water, stopping at every landing to catch her breath, and dressed like a commoner. She had to bargain at markets, quarrel, and face insults over every miserable sou. So, towards the end, we see that, after paying the money, after getting the necklace, it was time for her to go and give it back to her friend. But we see that her friend was no longer the charming, friendly, person who gave her the necklace. We see that now she's very cold. Cold meaning to be very stern in her way that she talks. So she said, "You should have returned it earlier. I might have needed it." Anyways, now that you've given it, give it quickly so that I can move on with my life. And that's when Mathilde feels really small, and she knew how the poor were treated by the rich, and she played her part very heroically, very like a hero. So she was convinced that now it was time for me to also pool in all my efforts so that I can help my husband to pay back the debt. A debt is when you take money from others and you have to pay it back. So there were certain adjustments that they had to make in their lives, because now they had to pay back all this money. So they had very little for themselves. So what are the various things that they had to do to adjust their lives? Firstly, they dismissed their maid. Dismissed is to fire. All right. So they no longer had a maid anymore. They changed their lodgings where they were staying, and they rented out a garret under the roof. Now we know a garret is a small little room that is under the top of a house. Okay, so they had to move from their normal house, which was really good, but since she was unhappy with it, still we see that uh, Mathilde was not very happy with her life. Then we see that she uh, came to know the drudgery of housework. Drudgery is the kind of the odious labors that she had to do. There was a lot of hard work involved with the housework. Because of the maid, her life was pretty good. Still, she was unhappy. But now she comes to know how much of work was involved. She washed the dishes and the dirty linen, so she even had to wash her own clothes as well as her husband's. And she had to carry down the garbage. Now, so we know that a garret is at the top, so she had to walk down and walk back up again. And when she had to walk back up, she had to carry water. So we know that now we see that Mathilde has a very, very difficult and hard life because of that one mistake of borrowing a necklace from her friend. And then we see not only did she have to do all the work at home, but when she went to the market to buy certain groceries for the house, she had to bargain. To bargain is to quarrel with the seller so that he would lessen the price, because she didn't have enough money, and also face every miserable insult for every sou. A sou is a kind of currency, like how we have rupees and the coins, all right? So that way, like paise, so we have the francs and you have a sou. Every month they had to pay some loans, renew others, and get more time. Her husband worked extra every evening doing accounts for a tradesman, and often late into the night he sat copying a manuscript at 5 sous a page. And this life lasted 10 years. At the end of 10 years, they had paid off everything, even the interest. Madame Loisel looked old now. Often she brooded over the past. What would have happened if she had not lost that necklace? How strange life is, how fickle. How little is needed for one to be ruined or saved. One Sunday, as she was walking in the Camps Elise, suddenly she saw Madame Forrester, still young, still beautiful, still charming. So we see that they had a very miserable life, and this miserable life lasted for 10 long years. Okay, because they had to pay back money, not only what they had borrowed but also with interest. And we see the husband also working very hard in order to pay back all the debts that he had taken. Sat copying a manuscript. You already know what a manuscript is, children. A manuscript is a book where you have to write everything by hand. There is no typewriter, there is no Xerox machines. Okay, so to copy down books by hand is known as a manuscript, and he was doing that kind of work just to make a little extra money. And after 10 years they finally paid back all this money, and it so happened that Mathilde and her friend happened to come across one another. And even though after 10 years Mathilde looks so old because of the kind of work that she had to do, she sees her friend looking so beautiful, so young, and still charming. Madame Loisel felt emotional. Should she speak to her? Yes, of course. And now that she had paid, she would tell her all. Why not? She went up to her. Good morning, Janine. The other, astonished to be addressed so familiarly by this common woman, did not recognize her. She stammered, but, madam, I don't know. You must have made a mistake. No, I am Mathilde Loisel. Her friend uttered a cry. Oh, my poor Mathilde, how you've changed. Yes, I have had some hard times since I last saw you, and many miseries, and all because of you. So we see how this conversation between Mathilde and her friend, where Mathilde is blaming her friend for the miserable life that she has. So she said that, at first her friend couldn't recognize her because she was so old now and she was dressed like a commoner, dressed in simple plain clothes. And when she finally did reveal her identity by saying, I am Mathilde, and she says, oh my, how you have changed, because Mathilde was a very beautiful girl. Okay, but because of the stress of life and the miserable life that she had, slowly we get to see age that is growing on her. And she says, because of the miseries that I have had, everything is because of you. Me? How can that be? You remember that diamond necklace that you lent me to wear to the ministry party? Yes. Well? Well, I lost it. What do you mean? You brought it back. I bought you back another exactly like it. And it had taken us 10 years to pay for it. It wasn't easy for us. We had very little. But at least it is over, and I am very glad. Madame Forrester was stunned. You say that you brought a diamond necklace to replace mine? Yes, you didn't notice then. They were very similar. So finally, Mathilde, who was, so miserable for 10 long years, finally spoke the truth to her friend and said, you were responsible for the miserable life that I had. So the friend was confused and said, why are you blaming me? So she says, you remember the diamond necklace that you gave me? I lost it, but I had to replace it with an actual diamond necklace. And you didn't realize because it was similar to the one that I had borrowed from you. And she smiled with proud and innocent pleasure. Madame Forrester, deeply moved, took both her hands. Oh, my poor Mathilde! Mine was an imitation. It was worth 500 francs at most. So we get to see children here towards the end where they had to pay nearly 36,000 francs for the diamond. What happens is her friend tells her, oh, my dear Mathilde, it was an imitation, it was a fake necklace, and what you brought me was a real diamond necklace. All right, and it was how much did it cost? Only 500 francs. So we get to see from this lesson how it is important to be happy with the things that we have, not to envy others, not to be jealous of the things that others have. Okay, so with this lesson we get to know and we learn the moral that is to be happy with what we have. All right, I hope children that you enjoyed part 2 of the lesson, as well as what we have learned from the life of Mathilde, that we should always be happy with the things that we have, as well as to be truthful to others, never to lie. Maybe if Mathilde had to tell her friend that she lost the necklace, she might not have had to have 10 miserable long years. Okay, so even being truthful is another moral that we learn from this lesson. Okay, with that, children, we come to the end of the lesson. Now we come to our workshop. Now, in the workshop, I want you all to do question number 1 and 2 in your textbook itself. Okay, complete who said to whom, as well as in question number 2. What do you think? You have to put your imagination, your thinking, your opinions, and read each of those sentences and say what you think about it. In question number 3 is to form pairs. Now, obviously, we are all from studying from the house, so do it by yourself and say how the story could have been different. Write your storyline in the form of bullet points showing the main events. So you can write maybe if things had to be different, maybe if she had to go and speak to her friend and tell the truth. Okay, you can make up your own story. Again, question number 4. Imagine what must have happened if Mathilde's friend discovered that the diamonds were real. Do you think she would return the necklace to Mathilde? Would that make Mathilde happy? That again could be another, outcome of the story, where if her friend actually knew that the necklace was a true diamond necklace, would she give it back to her friend? All right, and would that make Mathilde happy? There are many possibilities to this story. Next, discuss the following and write about each in your own words, 5 to 6 lines. Again, for you to do on your own, children, I want all of you all to read the lesson once more, part 1 and 2, and write down what you feel in your own words. Okay, now very important, question number 6. Now here there is a table given to you only with verb forms. Okay, so you'll already know what a verb is. It describes the action by the noun or the pronoun. Okay, so if you go through the entire table, you see the base form, which is also an infinitive. What do you mean by an infinitive? An infinitive is formed from a verb. And how do you form infinitives? Where you have to, that is to plus the verb. So if you say to give, to draw, to eat, to show, okay, these are infinitives. Now that we use the S form when we use it with the pronouns he or she. For example, he goes to the market. Okay, so we are using the S form of the base word of the verb, that is go. Okay, or she gives him back his book. All right, so give, we are putting an S form to it, so he or she will give. Did you understand? So she gives him or he gives her. All right, so we are using the S form of the verb give. The past tense form, obviously because it's in past, we add ed towards the end. Okay, for example, when we speak she wanted, so want is the base word, but when we add ed, it becomes the past tense of the verb form. All right, so ed is added. However, there are certain exceptions to this case. For example, the base word come, you don't say he comed. Okay, you don't say ed with the come base word. All right, you say that he came. Did you understand? Also, when you say about went, went is the past form of the verb go. You don't say he goed. All right. So these are various exceptions to these verb forms. Of course, an ing form, also known as the continuous action form. All right. So when you talk about I am eating, you were eating, we are using the ing form along with the modal auxiliary, a helping verb. Next we have the use of have to show the complete action. Usually, when we are writing in tenses, also in the perfect tense, to show the action is complete, we use have, has, or had. Yes or no? So, I have eaten, they have come. All right. So, this construction of these sentences is very, very important for you to go through. Now, if you look at the sentence given to you down, it is also used in certain constructions like they looked at each other stunned. It is used in the passive construction. You'll all know about active and passive voice. When you speak about passive, so you are talking already in the past tense. All right, and in active voice you talk about in present tense. Okay. Now, this is very important when you are talking in terms of your question paper. The first part of your question paper deals with grammar section. All right, these questions can be asked in your question paper. List at least 10 verbs, the last letter of each which is doubled in the present participle. For example, they've given you putting, P U T T. The last word, the last letter that is there, P U T. T being the last letter is repeated again. TING is added. So the last word is doubled. Did you understand? And it is in the present tense. I'll give you one more example. Sitting, SITTING, and digging, DIGGING. Alright, so we see how the last letter is doubled when you have it in the present participle form. Next, to list down 10 verbs, the last letter of which is doubled in the past participle. Now, we finished with present, we are going to speak about the past. Over here, it's given written. Can you see? WRITE. Okay, but when you're writing written, the T is doubled. So, therefore, how would you spell it, children? WRITTEN. Okay, I'll give you one more example. Slipped, SLIPPED. The base word is slip, SLIP. Again, when you talk about another example, stop, STOP, but when you're putting it in the past participle, you double the last letter, STOPPED. Okay. Lastly, list at least 10 verbs, the last letter of which is doubled in the past tense form. Okay, so here sob, SOB, and again the B is doubled with SOBBED. Similarly, two more examples. Planned, PLAN, and when you're writing it in the past tense, PLANNED. Again, beg and begged, BEGGED. Okay, so I want you all to think about at least 10 verbs of each. This you can do in your textbook itself. We will cover this topic again when we do our grammar portion. Okay, so for your classwork books, you will write on the questions which are at the side of the lesson along with the various questions from the workshop which I told you. Question number 3, 4 and 5. Okay, with that, children, we come to the end of our lesson. I hope you all enjoyed and understood everything with part 1 and part 2. Thank you and have a wonderful day.